2 years after we broke up, I received a letter from my ex-girlfriend's lawyer, demanding I repay every cent she had spent on me during our relationship. But for Chloe Walton, the heiress to the Walton Corporation fortune, that money was nothing. She was only doing it because her new boyfriend was jealous and wanted proof that I was completely out of her heart, even though she knew I was already drowning in debt from my mother's medical bills. $380,020. That was the grand total she had spent on me over the years. The 20 cents was for a takeout meal she'd bought my mother when I was completely broke. I couldn't believe she'd even included that. I finally scraped the money together after maxing out my very last credit card. 2 years ago, I had sold myself to Chloe Walton to pay for my mother's treatment. I knew she only saw me as a stand-in for her young nephew, but I didn't care. That is, until her nephew, Liam, returned from abroad, found out about me, and threw an enormous tantrum, demanding in front of everyone that I pay back every dollar Chloe had ever spent on me. The very next day, Chloe threw a ledger at me I'd never seen before. It meticulously detailed every single expense from our 5 years together, from a $2 ice cream cone to the sports car she'd bought me. She had even itemized the cost of our hotel rooms. I'll cover half the hotel fees, and we can deduct the $10,000 Liam owes you. That leaves you with a balance of $380,000. You have 1 month to wire it to my account. Lounging on the sofa, she looked up at me with a mocking gaze, her eyes so cold and unfamiliar they made my heart clench. "What's wrong? Don't have the money?" she sneered. "When you went after Liam for what he owed you, threatening and humiliating him, did you ever stop to think if he had the money?" The private room fell deathly silent. Every eye was on me, and then the room erupted in jeering laughter. "Chloe, darling, Ethan's a broke loser. Where is he going to get $380,000? He was shameless enough to climb into your bed and be your toy boy then. Who do you think he'll have to sell himself to now to pay you back?" "It's only $380,000, another woman purred. "Ethan, if you take good care of me tonight, I'll give you $350,000. Chloe seemed to crack a small smile, swirling the wine in her glass with disinterest. "Well, that has nothing to do with me. Ethan, if you can't pay on time, I'll have no choice but to sue you." At her words, the blood drained from my face. A sharp pain shot through my chest, as if I'd been stabbed, and I nearly doubled over. This wasn't the first time she had come after me for Liam's sake since he'd been back. The first time, she punished me with 3 days of no food because I hadn't made him dinner on time. The second time, she had my hand broken because I accidentally dropped Liam's tablet. The third time, just because Liam was in a bad mood, she forced me to dress as a clown and perform the stunt of breaking a stone slab on my chest, a trick that almost killed me. And now, all I did was ask for the $10,000 back that Liam had tearfully begged me to lend him, and Chloe had dragged me here to be publicly crucified by her and her pack of wealthy friends. Everyone was waiting for me to break, to become their evening's entertainment. But the thought of my mother's staggering medical bills gave me strength. I forced a smile and turned to the woman who had made the offer. "If I take good care of you, you'll really give me the money?" Her eyes lit up with cruel amusement. With a silent nod from Chloe, she called the waiter over and ordered 10 bottles of hard liquor. "Ethan, drink all 10 of these tonight, and the $380,000 is yours." Without a moment's hesitation, I grabbed a bottle and started chugging. The high-proof alcohol felt like it was burning a hole straight through my stomach. Pain seared through me, my brow furrowed, and cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I could feel dozens of disdainful eyes on me, but Chloe's gaze was the most piercing of all. I didn't care. I needed money, desperately. In the face of that need, my dignity was worthless. 10 bottles later, my eyes were frighteningly bloodshot. I stumbled toward the woman and held out my hand. "The money," but she just turned to Chloe. "Chloe, darling, should I give it to him or not?" "Go ahead," Chloe said, a faint, cruel smile playing on her lips. "It's pocket change. Think of it as giving alms to a beggar on the street." A credit card landed on the floor by my feet. I bent down, picked it up, and immediately rushed to the hospital. With this money, my mother could finally have her surgery. But after I arrived and paid the outstanding balance, the doctor approached me with a look of profound regret. "Ms. Walton gave a direct order," he said, his voice low. "We are to cease all medical treatment for your mother. Our hands are tied." My world collapsed. I frantically dialed Chloe's number, ready to beg her for mercy. All I heard on the other end was a soft, mocking laugh. "Didn't she just have an operation last week? Skipping one won't kill her. Consider it your punishment for upsetting Liam." The moment she hung up, a shrill, continuous beep echoed from my mother's room. The undulating wave on the heart monitor went flat. My phone slipped from my grasp. With a cry, I lunged toward the bed, my eyes burning. I grabbed my mother's hand. It was as cold as ice. "Mom!" My desperate scream tore through the silence of the night. I knelt beside her bed for a day and a night, my eyes hollow, until the first rays of dawn crept into the room. Only then did I begin to accept that she was gone. The doctor approached me, his expression somber, and handed me an envelope. "Ethan, your mother wrote this for you before she passed. I'm so sorry for your loss." The note was short, but it broke me completely. "Ethan, run. Your life is just beginning. My mother's last gift to me was my freedom." With nothing left to lose, I took care of my mother's funeral arrangements and then, without a second's hesitation, I called the National Research Institute. "Professor Albright," I said, "I've made my decision. I want to join the project." The professor's voice trembled with excitement. "Ethan, are you sure? Is everything with your mother settled? And what about that woman you love?" I cut him off. "My mother is gone, and I will never love that woman again." There was a brief silence on the line. Then he said gently, "Ethan, I don't know what you've been through these past 5 years, but the most painful times are when we grow the most. Your life is just beginning." He was right. How could I let the life of a prodigy be destroyed in a toxic swamp like Chloe Walton? Maybe I did like Chloe, just a little. She was beautiful, she was good to me, and she was willing to pay for my mother's treatment. What more could I have asked for? But that all changed when Liam came back. One night, Chloe, who never drank, got drunk and confessed, "Liam, I miss you so much I think I'm going insane. I wish I'd never pretended you were just my nephew." I picked up the photograph she'd dropped. It was a handsome young man who bore a striking resemblance to me. In that instant, I understood everything. Between Liam and me, I was the disposable stand-in. And from that moment on, any affection I had for Chloe turned to ash. I continued to play my part, enduring all the depraved things from Chloe that she would never dare subject Liam to. I told myself that as soon as my mother was well, I would walk away and never look back. But in the end, all that awaited me was my mother's cold body. And a heartless iMessage from Chloe. "Have you learned your lesson yet?" I stared at the message for a long time before subconsciously opening her Facebook page. There were pictures of a beach, the ocean, a sunset, and a carefree Liam. All of it bought with my mother's life. I hailed a cab back to her mansion to pack my bags. The moment I walked in, I saw Chloe sitting on the living room sofa, her face a thundercloud. "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer my message?" she demanded. Cold, cruel, arrogant. I couldn't fathom what I had ever seen in her. When she saw I had no intention of responding, Chloe rushed upstairs after me and shoved me hard. "Ethan, you made Liam miserable. What right do you have to give me this attitude?" My back slammed against the wall, scraping the skin, but I just looked calmly into her furious eyes. "So what now? How do you want me to apologize this time? Should I break a stone on my chest? Let you break my other hand? Or maybe drink another 10 bottles of liquor?" The docile toy boy had suddenly shown his claws. Chloe was taken aback for a second, but then, uncharacteristically, she became calm. "Come with me to the family estate. My grandfather wants to see you." Then, as if remembering something, she added, "I'll give you $10,000. You know what to say and what not to say." I let out a bitter laugh. The Walton family had always been obsessed with their reputation. When Mr. Walton Sr. discovered Chloe's feelings for Liam were inappropriate, he'd shipped Liam overseas without a second thought. He then arranged a series of dates for Chloe, but she'd singled me out from the crowd for one reason only: I looked just like Liam. That night, she drugged my drink and forced herself on me. She was desperate for affection, and so our arrangement as benefactor and kept man began. The scenery blurred past the car window until we pulled up to the gates of the Walton family estate. The moment the door opened, Liam threw his arms around Chloe. "Chloe, I missed you." Her stormy expression instantly melted, and she playfully tapped his nose. "Why aren't you wearing any shoes? What if you catch a cold? Then you'll have to stay and take care of me," he purred. They flirted shamelessly, like a couple madly in love. The butler tactfully tried to intervene. "Miss Walton, your grandfather's health has been poor lately. It might be best to be a bit more discreet." The last time she was here, she'd gotten into a screaming match with her grandfather over Liam, a fight that sent the old man's blood pressure skyrocketing and landed him in the emergency room. Chloe frowned. "Why does Grandpa want to see me all of a sudden? Has he been hearing rumors?" Just then, an authoritative voice boomed from the top of the stairs. "Are there rumors I shouldn't be hearing?" Mr. Walton Sr. descended slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. I hurried forward to help him. Other than my own mother, he was the only person who had ever treated me like family. He gave me a warm, appreciative look, but his expression soured the moment he saw Chloe and Liam clinging to each other. An aunt and her nephew, carrying on like this. Have you no shame? Chloe's expression frosted over as she finally released Liam's hand. "You wanted to see me?" Her grandfather snorted. Yes, about your marriage to Ethan. You two have been together for 5 years. It's high time you made it official. I've already made the arrangements. 1 month from today, you and Ethan will be married. At this, Liam's face went white. Chloe's rejection was swift and absolute. I refuse. With a sharp crack, her grandfather's cane struck her across the back. You were the one who insisted on being with him, he roared, full of frustration. You stood at your parents' grave and promised you would make him happy. And now, you've dragged this out for 5 years. How much more of his life are you planning to waste? I lowered my gaze, a sudden wave of memories washing over me. We'd had good times, Chloe and I. She was a ruthless businesswoman, a shark in the corporate world. But for me, she had softened. Once, just because I said, please, no more bloodshed, she spared an enemy who had tried to have her killed. From that day on, everyone knew she had a weakness. She was a staunch materialist. Yet on the third night I was delirious with a high fever. She drove to a remote shrine to pray for my recovery. I once mentioned offhandedly that I liked baby's breath, and she had the entire estate landscaped with fields of it. But later, she renamed those fields after Liam. Just as now, the moment Liam's eyes welled with tears, she was ready to defy the world for him. I will not marry Ethan. He is not good enough for me. She took Liam's hand, a wild, desperate look in her eyes. The only person I truly love is Liam. I will never marry anyone else. I can agree to let the world think Ethan is my fiancé, but I cannot marry him. I just can't. With that, she dropped to her knees. A moment later, Liam knelt beside her, his eyes brimming with defiant tears. Grandpa, please, just let us be together. Mr. Walton Sr. was so enraged he could barely breathe, his chest heaving. Get to the family chapel and kneel, he bellowed. Under the shocked stares of the household staff, Chloe and Liam, their hands tightly clasped, walked into the chapel together. I watched the entire farce unfold, my face a mask of indifference. It was all so ridiculous. I took a small wooden box from my bag. Inside was an ornate jade pendant, a Walton family heirloom. Mr. Walton Sr. stared at it, stunned. Ethan, what are you doing? I took 2 steps back and bowed deeply. Grandpa, thank you for taking care of me for these past 5 years. But I can't stay with Chloe any longer. He started to protest, to ask me to stay, but I didn't hesitate. I set the box down and walked away without a backward glance. As I passed the chapel, I heard noises from within. Through the crack in the door, I could see Chloe and Liam pressed against each other, as if declaring their undying love to all the Walton ancestors. I didn't linger. I turned and left the Walton estate for good. First, I went to the bank and transferred the $380,000 into Chloe's account. Then, I went to Walton Corp and resigned from my position as her assistant. The HR manager, one of the few friends I had there, clapped me on the shoulder. Ethan, he said with genuine relief, congratulations on your escape. I felt a massive weight lift from my shoulders. My debt to Chloe Walton was paid. When I returned to her mansion that evening, a glass shattered at my feet, spraying shards that cut my arm. Chloe stormed towards me, her face contorted with rage, and slapped me hard across the face. Ethan, my grandfather treated you like his own flesh and blood, and you tried to kill him. You pushed him down the stairs. My cheek throbbed, but a surge of panic washed over me. What happened? How did he fall? What are the doctors saying? A pathetic, whining voice drifted down from the second floor. Ethan, the butler already identified you. He saw you push Grandpa. Are you still going to play innocent? Chloe, is this really your man? A coward who won't even admit what he's done. I was shoved violently into a corner, stumbling to keep my balance. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flicker of triumph in Liam's expression. My blood ran cold. I knew, without a doubt, that Liam was the one who had pushed him. Just then, a phone rang, and I heard the butler's frantic voice on the other end. Miss Walton, your grandfather is hemorrhaging. The hospital is out of his blood type. I couldn't make out the rest of what he said, because Liam added fuel to the fire. Chloe, he said sweetly, if I remember correctly, Ethan has the same blood type as Grandpa, doesn't he? A chilling dread crept up my spine. The next thing I knew, I was being dragged to the hospital and strapped down in an emergency room. Take his blood, Chloe commanded. As long as it saves my grandfather, I don't care if he dies. Thick ropes bit into my skin as a cold needle slid into my vein. My eyes filled with despair. Chloe, I pleaded, you didn't have to do this. I would have given him my blood willingly, but I did not push him. You can't do this to me, she sneered. Still lying? After how good he was to you, this is how you repay him. You had better pray he pulls through, or I will make you pay for this with your life. A storm of anger, pain, and utter despair raged within me. I could feel the blood leaving my body, my temperature dropping, as if life itself was draining away. Was this how my mother felt in her final moments, helpless and alone? In the haze of fading consciousness, a single tear escaped my eye. I thought I heard her calling my name. Mom, are you here for me? I fell into a long, deep dream. In the dream, Liam hadn't come back yet, and Chloe and I were still deeply in love. She would proudly introduce me to all her friends, showing me off as if I were the center of her universe. She would come with me to the hospital to visit my mother, doing everything she could to win her over, gently hoping to one day be her daughter-in-law. She did so much for me back then, making my heart flutter in ways I'd never felt before. I truly believed we had a future together. Then, a bucket of ice water shocked me awake, drenching my thin clothes and sending a brutal, agonizing chill deep into my bones. The dream was over. Chloe sat across from me, her gaze like ice. You should be grateful my grandfather is stable. Otherwise, you would have died on that operating table. But until he wakes up, you're gonna stay in here and think about what you've done. And be ready to give more blood at a moment's notice. A buzzing filled my ears, and goosebumps erupted on my skin. This was her dungeon, the place she dealt with her enemies. Countless people had met their end in this room. It was perpetually dark, and the air was thick with the metallic tang of old blood. I once joked with her, if we ever become enemies, are you going to lock me in here and torture me? Back then, she had promised me with absolute certainty, never, we'll never be enemies. And yet here I was, thrown into this charnel house by her own hand, all because of a transparent lie. The disappointment was a physical pain, like a dull blade sawing slowly at my heart. I forced the words out, each one an effort. I did not push your grandfather. I didn't do it. I have nothing to be sorry for, and I will not reflect in here. I tried to push myself up, but my body was a wreck. I couldn't even get to my feet. Chloe let out a derisive snort. Ethan, you're such a convincing liar, but I'm done believing a single word that comes out of your mouth. With that, she turned and left, and the lights went out, plunging me into absolute, blood-scented darkness. A wave of pure terror washed over me, and I felt myself start to unravel. I'm claustrophobic, severely, can trigger panic attacks so bad I can't breathe. Chloe knew this. For my sake, she used to keep the mansion lit up all night. But now, the door to the dungeon burst open. Liam stood there, looking down at me with utter contempt. You pretty boy, he sneered. If your face didn't look a little like mine, Chloe would have never given you the time of day. But don't worry, once I'm done with it, you won't be seducing anyone ever again. He advanced on me with a small knife, his eyes wild with a jealous, unhinged rage, and swung it at my face. A primal need to survive took over. My eyes burned as I threw up a hand to defend myself, but I felt no pain. Ethan, a furious voice roared from the doorway. The next thing I knew, a powerful force slammed into me, sending me sprawling to the floor. My head cracked against the corner of the wall. I landed on something hard. The sickening crunch of bone under my weight made my skin crawl. I had fallen on a skeleton. But what truly defied belief was what I saw next. Liam, having plunged the knife deep into his own shoulder, collapsing in a pool of his own blood. Ethan, he gasped, I came to help you, and you tried to kill me. I panicked, desperate to explain to Chloe that I hadn't touched him. But she was in a greater panic than I was, screaming for someone to get Liam to a hospital, demanding the best surgeons in the city. Her white dress was splattered with blood. Her arm was bleeding where she'd scraped it on the rusty door, and her eyes were a frantic web of red. She was a complete wreck, fragile and falling apart. She even screamed at her friends when they tried to comfort her. Get away from me, she shrieked. Then she fell to her knees, praying with a desperate fervor. If Liam dies, I'll die with him. I had never seen her like this. Suddenly, the doors to the operating room flew open and a nurse rushed out. The patient is bleeding out, and we're out of his blood type. Without a second's hesitation, Chloe rolled up her sleeve. Take mine, she said. We have the same blood type. I can save him. Chloe, are you insane? One of her friends cried, trying to stop her. He's just a man. No matter how much you love him, he's not worth this. Chloe's gaze was chilling. Liam is the love of my life, she said, her voice dangerously low. He is my life. I can't live without him. The surgery lasted for 24 hours, but Liam pulled through. Chloe was weak from blood loss, but she was ecstatic. She had the entire hospital wing cleared, bringing in a team of specialists to attend only to Liam, and she never once left his side. Everyone was talking about their great love story, but all I could think about was my mother's final, agonizing moments. It turned out Chloe Walton held the power of life and death in her hands. The irony was sickening. Liam was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and Chloe stayed with him the entire time. During those 2 weeks, I packed my few belongings, moved out of the mansion that had been my prison for 5 years, and used what little money I had to rent a small apartment. I went back to my old part-time job at a bar to make ends meet. I just had to survive for 2 more weeks, and then I could finally start my new life at the National Research Institute. I never expected to see her again so soon. To celebrate Liam's release from the hospital, Chloe booked the entire bar where I worked, inviting every rich kid in New York City for an all-night rager. The lights were dim, the music was deafening. Chloe doted on Liam, and her sycophantic friends all crowded around him, fawning over his recovery. I wanted nothing to do with any of them, so I texted my boss that I was leaving early. But just as I was heading for the door, Liam's voice stopped me. "Ethan," he called out, his eyes red-rimmed and pathetic. "After what you did to me, you're not even going to apologize. You're just going to run away." I shot him a cold look. "I'll say it one last time. I didn't do anything to you. If you keep spreading these lies, I'll sue you for slander." I turned to leave, but Chloe's bodyguards moved to block my path. A moment later, someone poured a bottle of liquor over my head, the cold liquid and the stinging humiliation washing over me. The blaring music cut out abruptly, and the entire bar fell silent, every eye fixed on me with malicious glee. "Think you can just walk away after what you've done?" Chloe's voice was sharp. "Ethan, I never knew you were such a vicious person. First my grandfather, and now you attack Liam. What's next? Are you going to turn me into some kind of doll to keep forever?" She looked exhausted, her face pale, but her eyes were like daggers, fixed on me. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. "I've told you," I said, my voice flat. "I didn't hurt your grandfather, and I didn't hurt Liam." The words sounded hollow even to my own ears. The security cameras were conveniently broken. The only witness had been bought, and Chloe was too blinded by her obsession to see the truth. "I swear on my life, I never touched that knife. If I'm lying, may I never find peace." "But Liam, can you say the same? Can you swear you didn't stage this whole thing yourself?" "That's enough." Chloe cut me off, pulling Liam behind her protectively. "Ethan, you're still completely unrepentant. Don't blame me for what I'm about to do, for forgetting any history we ever had." My knees buckled as her bodyguards forced me to the ground in front of the whole crowd. I struggled against them, a primal fear of death gripping my heart. Chloe took a leather whip from one of her men and advanced on me slowly. "Are you scared?" she asked, her voice dangerously low. "Did you ever stop to think how scared my grandfather and Liam were when you attacked them?" With a sharp crack, the whip sliced across my back. My whole body convulsed as if I'd been electrocuted, the pain stealing my breath. "Speak!" Chloe's voice rose to a shriek, laced with fury. "Admit you were wrong." "No," I managed, my voice weak but defiant. Chloe let out a laugh that was pure rage, raising the whip again. "No? You think denying it changes what you did? You're a monster." The sound of the whip and the jeers of the crowd were suffocating. But the more they pushed, the more defiant I became. I started to laugh, a wild, broken sound that brought tears to my eyes. "I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize? The biggest mistake I ever made was meeting you, Chloe Walton. You're the real monster here." Liam frowned. "Ethan, don't you dare talk to Chloe like that. And who are you to tell me what to do?" I shot back, my voice dripping with contempt. "You're nothing but a parasite, hiding behind her power." That was the final spark. Chloe's rage exploded, and she began whipping me with a relentless, blind fury. "This one is for my grandfather," she screamed. "This one is for trying to kill Liam. And this one is to remind you that you will never be a part of the Walton family." 64 lashes in total. Each one felt like a blow directly to my heart. A metallic taste filled my mouth, and I coughed up a spray of blood before the world went black. I woke up in a hospital room. On the television, a video of my beating was playing on a loop, a live stream someone had recorded. My own agonized groans were audible, but no one in the room seemed to notice. I was invisible, left for dead in a corner. The bar owner found me hours later when he came to close up, and that's the only reason I was saved. My heart was a dead thing in my chest. Couldn't even cry. "You're awake." The door had opened without me noticing. Liam strolled in, looking the picture of health, his cheeks flushed. He looked nothing like a man who'd just recovered from a major injury. "Those 2 weeks in the hospital," I said, the realization dawning. "You were faking it." "So what if I was?" he said, a smug grin spreading across his face. "All I have to do is look a little pathetic, and Chloe will move heaven and earth for me. Soon, I'll be the one standing by her side, officially." He tossed a plastic bag onto my bed. Inside was my mother's urn. The blood froze in my veins. My hands trembled as I opened the small box. It was empty. "What did you do?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Where are my mother's ashes?" Liam watched my agony with detached amusement. "Just a pile of dust. Burying it seemed like a waste of space. I figured the stray dogs could make better use of it. Circle of life, you know? Oh, and I almost forgot, he added casually. Telling the hospital to cut off your mother's treatment? That was my idea too. You see, all it takes is one word from me, and Chloe will do anything. How can you possibly compete with that? As if to punctuate his victory, he raised his left hand, showing off a glittering ring on his finger. I recognized it. It was the $1 million ring Chloe had bought at an auction 6 months ago. At the time, everyone had assumed it was for me, that our engagement was imminent. The room had been filled with people shouting for us to get married right then and there. But Chloe had just looked at me with cold disdain and said, "He's not worthy." Chloe says I deserve all the finest things in the world, Liam preened, including her. She says I'm the only one who's worthy. I snapped. I lunged forward and my hand connected with his face. My fingers closed around his throat. "You killed my mother," I snarled, my voice raw with hatred. "You deserve to die." The rage was a red haze in my vision, a stark contrast to the smug, triumphant smile on Liam's face. Suddenly, something heavy crashed against the side of my head. A vase. Chloe shoved me back, her hand striking my face with brutal force. "You're insane," she screamed. A vice of pain closed around my heart. "Insane," I laughed, a crazed sound. "I can be much more insane than this." Fueled by pure hatred, I grabbed a jagged piece of the broken vase from the floor, but Chloe's hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. "You killed her," I roared. "Both of you." For the first time, Chloe seemed to realize something was truly wrong. Her eyes fell to the empty urn in my hands, and her face filled with shock. "What is this?" "Your mother." A flicker of memory crossed her face, her own words from a month ago echoing back. Didn't she just have an operation last week? Skipping one won't kill her. Seeing the doubt flicker in Chloe's eyes, Liam quickly interjected. "Chloe, don't listen to him. He's lying. I saw his mother walking around the hospital grounds just 2 days ago. How could she possibly be dead?" He turned to me, his voice dripping with false pity. "Ethan, are you really so desperate for her sympathy that you'd lie about your own mother's death?" At his words, the flicker of guilt in Chloe's eyes vanished, replaced by an arctic chill. She gave an order to have me committed to a psychiatric hospital, with instructions for the staff to give me special attention. On my first day there, I tried to escape by breaking a window. They caught me and beat me senseless. The second day, they strapped me to a table. On the third day, I finally broke, screaming that I needed to see Chloe. Instead of Chloe, they sent in a pack of vicious dogs. Their eyes glowed in the dim light as they fixed their predatory gaze on me. From a speaker above, I heard Liam's mocking voice. "Ethan, whether you live or die today is all up to you." The blood rushed to my head, and my world tilted on its axis. I prayed this was all a nightmare, prayed I had never met, never loved Chloe Walton. But we had been so close once. In the bedroom, the study, the shower, even on her office desk, our passion had been wild and all-consuming. I never imagined that one day, that same intimacy would be the weapon she used to destroy me. Just as I resolved to bite through my own tongue, the door to the room was kicked open. Chloe stormed in, flanked by bodyguards, her eyes blazing with a violent fury. Her men quickly subdued the dogs. For the first time in what felt like years, I felt the warmth of her body as she caught me. I was shaking uncontrollably, and then the world went dark as I collapsed into her arms. When I woke up, I was back in a bed at her mansion. The sound of terrified yelping and screaming echoed from the living room. I dragged myself out of bed and cracked open the door. Chloe was sitting on the sofa, her face a blank mask, as she ordered her bodyguards to take care of the dogs. In that moment, she looked like the Grim Reaper herself. "Even if it's something I've thrown away," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, "no one else is allowed to touch it." She gave her men a subtle nod, and the dogs were dragged away. None of it felt real. It was all a terrible, waking nightmare. But the searing pain in my back, where the whip wounds had reopened, was a brutal reminder. I gasped, nearly losing my footing. Chloe heard the sound and came to the doorway. Her expression softened, almost imperceptibly, but her words were as cruel as ever. "What happened was just Liam being thoughtless. You're fine, so just let it go." She tossed a document at me. "Sign this legal agreement. Swear you'll never bring this up again or use it against Liam. If you do, I'll forget about the $280,000 you still owe me, and I'll make sure your mother gets the best medical care." As if worried I might get the wrong idea, she added, "Don't misunderstand. I love Liam, but for the sake of the 5 years we spent together, I can ensure you'll be financially secure for the rest of your life." She said it with the same condescending air she'd used at the bar. *It's pocket change. Think of it as giving alms to a beggar, So that's what I was to her. A beggar on the street, expected to be grateful for whatever scraps she threw my way. Maybe I was once. For my mother, I would have endured anything, but I had no weaknesses left to exploit. When I didn't respond, she dropped the papers on the bed. Sign it and bring it to my office. She turned and walked out, the picture of arrogant indifference. With a heart as cold as ash, I picked up the agreement and tore it to shreds. Then, without a moment's hesitation, I called the police and reported everything Liam had done. The clock struck midnight. I glanced at the calendar on the wall. In 10 hours, I would be free of this place forever. I finished packing my bags and took a long, hot shower. Before I left, I went to the cemetery. I buried the empty urn and knelt before my mother's grave, pressing my forehead to the ground 3 times. The grief I had suppressed for so long finally broke free, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Mom," I whispered, "I'm going to be free now. I hope you can see me. I hope you're happy for me." A single firefly landed on my fingertip, its wings beating softly. Its gentle glow illuminated the photograph on her headstone. Her smile was as warm and kind as I remembered, her eyes full of a love that seemed to spill out of the frame. It was as if she was right there with me, comforting me as she always had. "My Ethan is a grown man now," I could almost hear her say. "Why the tears?" I slept soundly for the first time in a long time. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the window. My future was finally beginning. My phone buzzed. It was a digital wedding invitation from Liam, followed by a text from the NYPD. "Mr. Hayes, your case has been accepted and an official investigation is now underway." A genuine smile, one I hadn't felt in years, spread across my face. I deleted the invitation without a second thought and then blocked Chloe and Liam on everything. 30 minutes later, I was on a plane. As we broke through the clouds, the knot of tension in my chest finally, completely unwound. "Goodbye, Chloe." I was free. The same night I left, Liam proposed to Chloe. The event was a citywide spectacle, live-streamed and trending #1 on Twitter, with every influencer scrambling to repost it. Under a canopy of projected stars, Liam got down on one knee, holding out a ring with a trembling hand. "Chloe," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "will you marry me?" The crowd roared its approval, chanting, "Say yes, say yes," amidst a storm of flowers and applause. Chloe's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him, her voice both firm and tender as she replied, "I will." Dozens of drones lit up the sky, forming the image of a heart pierced by an arrow, as a 2-hour, multi-million-dollar fireworks display began. At that exact moment, on every digital billboard on every skyscraper in the city, a montage of Chloe and Liam's 10-year love story began to play. Each carefully curated moment was a testament to their grand, epic romance. As they embraced and kissed for the cameras, the internet exploded with messages of congratulations. "OMG, so sweet, wishing them a lifetime of happiness." One comment read, "He's 6 feet 2 inches, gorgeous, and so in love. Only a queen like Chloe Walton deserves him." But a few dissenting voices slipped through. "Is everyone having collective amnesia? I could have sworn she was engaged to someone else." The next day, Chloe herself posted a response on Twitter. "The only person I have ever loved is Liam. There has never been anyone else." The post was accompanied by a collage of smiling photos of the two of them from the past decade. Leaning against her shoulder, Liam scrolled happily through the supportive comments. "Chloe," he murmured, "aren't you worried Ethan will be hurt when he sees this?" Chloe playfully tapped his nose. "He was just a stand-in. Why would you worry about him?" Satisfied, Liam pressed his advantage, suggesting they get married right away. Chloe hesitated. She didn't care about public opinion, but she had to consider her grandfather. She was afraid the shock might be too much for him when he woke up. But all her reservations melted away at the sight of a single tear rolling down Liam's cheek. She decided then and there to give him the wedding of the century, setting the date for 1 month away. Known for being a ruthless workaholic, she cleared her schedule completely, personally overseeing every single detail of the planning. The flowers had to be red roses, flown in fresh from Ecuador. The gown and tuxedo were custom-made on a rush order by a world-renowned designer. She even designed the layout of the venue herself. She was determined to make the man she loved the happiest man in the world. On the eve of the wedding, Chloe finally took a break and went to a party with her friends. "I can't believe you're the first of us to get married, Chloe," one of her friends said with a laugh. "Back when you were torn between Ethan and Liam because of your grandfather, we all had bets on who you'd end up with." "Seriously," another chimed in, "when you and Liam actually tie the knot, that pathetic loser Ethan is going to have a complete meltdown. But Ethan was so devoted to you all those years. He would have done anything for you." "That's enough," Chloe snapped, her face hardening. Ethan was a placeholder, nothing more. Even if he comes crawling back, the only one I will ever love is Liam. A sudden wave of irritation washed over her, and she downed her drink in one go. She realized she hadn't seen me or heard anything about me in a while. He couldn't have actually given up, could he? The thought was strangely unsettling. But then she remembered the 5 years I'd spent devoted to her, and dismissed it. Impossible. I had always been at her beck and call. How could I just disappear? Was he planning to make a scene at the wedding? The thought annoyed her. In her mind, I was already guilty of being irrational and pathetic. The noisy room fell silent for a moment before someone asked, "So, Chloe, what are you going to do about Ethan?" Their eyes were hungry, predatory, as if waiting for her permission to tear me apart. A complex mix of emotions churned inside Chloe, and she snapped at them impatiently. "Leave him alone." She left the party, leaving a room full of stunned faces behind her. When she got back to the mansion, Liam was waiting for her, dressed in a sharp suit, looking as alluring as ever. Normally, the sight would have ignited a fire in her, but tonight, she felt nothing but a strange apathy. For the first time ever, she brushed him off. "The wedding is tomorrow. We should get some sleep." When he protested, she patiently soothed him until he drifted off. But sleep wouldn't come for her. After hours of tossing and turning, she finally got up and took a cold shower. But the cold water did nothing to quell the restlessness inside her. Instead, it only brought thoughts of me to the surface. She found herself uncontrollably reminiscing about the nights we'd spent together. In a daze, she felt a pair of strong arms wrap around her waist, and she couldn't stop herself. She spun around and kissed him fiercely. "Ethan," she murmured. Something inside Liam shattered. His pride wounded, he shoved her away. "Chloe, look at me. It's me." She blinked, as if waking from a dream, and as she focused on his face, a flicker of disappointment crossed her own. "If you're in love with Ethan, then go be with him," Liam accused, his voice filled with disbelief and hurt. "Why are you marrying me?" His words snapped her out of it. "No, Liam, I'm sorry," she said. Her expression panicked as she grabbed his hands. "I love you. It's always been you. Please don't cry. It breaks my heart to see you cry." Her words seemed to be a magic switch. He wrapped his arms around her waist. "Really?" he asked, his voice small. "Really? I swear it." Looking at his tear-stained face, her heart ached with pity, and she pulled him into a tight embrace. "I swear, I, Chloe Walton, will love Liam forever. If I ever break that promise, may I die a horrible death." The words were barely out of her mouth before Liam clapped a hand over it. "Are you crazy?" he whispered, his eyes wide. The Waltons were notoriously superstitious and had a strict rule against making such oaths. Yet for him, Chloe had repeatedly defied her family's traditions and her grandfather's wishes. The thought made him smile through his tears. "Then we promise. Neither of us will ever betray the other." "I promise," Chloe said, her voice soft and indulgent, linking her pinky with his. It was well past midnight by the time she finally got him to fall asleep. Chloe went to her study to get some work done, but she couldn't concentrate. Her mind was a tangled mess, and her thoughts kept drifting back to me. She remembered my eyes, how they used to smile like the sun, how I had seemed like an angel descending into her world. I could knit the warmest scarves, cook the most comforting meals, and I had even once, with a surgeon's steady hand, saved her life. I had seemed capable of anything, my inner strength a solid, unshakable core. Between the two of us, I had always been the anchor. But after Liam came back, everything changed. I grew quiet and withdrawn, becoming obsessed with money, my every other word a demand for more. Anxious, Chloe picked up her phone and, for the first time in a long time, opened her iMessage thread with me. The empty chat history and call log made her pause. How could that be? She closed and reopened the app, rebooted her phone, but it was no use. There were no new messages from me. It was true I hadn't messaged her much in recent years, but I would at least check in occasionally, or ask for money for my mother's treatments. This silence was completely out of character. Chloe typed out a message, asking how I was, then deleted it. After a long moment, she placed the phone face down on her desk without sending anything. She glanced out the window. The sun was rising, but the sky was bizarrely split, half clear and half choked with dark, thundering clouds. It was a perfect reflection of the storm in her own heart. Her alarm went off. Pushing down her unease, Chloe went to wake Liam. 2 hours later, the venue was filled with guests, and Chloe was in her dressing room, waiting. As the start time approached, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Part of her was relieved I wasn't there. She didn't want the hassle of dealing with me. But another part of her was disappointed. After 5 years together, there was still a connection, however twisted. She had hoped I would come, wish her well like a friend, and then finally, gracefully exit her life for good. She picked up her phone and sent me a text. "Where are you?" The moment she hit send, there was a knock at the door. It was the wedding planner. "Ms. Walton, it's almost time. We should get you in position." "I'll be right there," Chloe said, setting her phone down on the table. She didn't see the small red exclamation point that appeared next to her message. Delivery failed. The ceremony was magnificent. Flowers, champagne, a red carpet, every detail had been personally approved by Chloe. Liam stood at the end of the aisle, his eyes fixed on the grand entrance, his expression full of adoration. The music shifted, the doors swung open, and Chloe appeared, looking radiant as she began her steady walk towards him. She was moments away from marrying the man she had loved for years, the man she was supposed to spend the rest of her life with. But as she looked at Liam's smiling face, all she felt was a hollow ache, a persistent feeling that something was deeply wrong. For a fleeting moment, his face blurred, replaced by mine. She could almost hear my voice, soft and hopeful. "Chloe, will you marry me someday?" The voice from her memory merged with the one in front of her. Liam was looking at her, his expression serious. "Chloe Walton," he said, "I'm finally marrying you." The words snapped her back to reality. This was her wedding. This was the man she had promised to love for the rest of her life. Her voice softened. "Liam, I love you." But the words had barely left her lips when the doors to the hall were thrown open and a group of police officers strode in. They walked directly to Liam, flashed their badges, and snapped a pair of handcuffs on his wrists. "Liam Knight," the lead officer said, "you're under arrest for aggravated assault. You need to come with us." The bustling hall fell completely silent. Liam's face was a mask of terror. "Why are you arresting me?" "Chloe, help me." Chloe, recovering quickly from the shock, stepped in front of the officers. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice firm. "Liam is the kindest person I know. He could never." The officer's face was impassive. "As a person of interest in the case, Ms. Walton, we're going to need you to come with us as well." The wedding of the century came to a screeching halt. It was the biggest scandal of the year, and every news outlet in the city was scrambling to cover it. At the police station, Chloe stared grimly at the mountain of evidence, a cold dread spreading through her. In addition to the assault charges, Mr. Knight is also accused of bribing the director of a private psychiatric facility to facilitate further violence against Mr. Hayes, the detective explained. He pushed another file across the table. "Mr. Hayes is pressing charges on all counts and has refused any possibility of a settlement." The sheer volume of information was suffocating. She wanted to defend him, to scream that they had it all wrong, that he wasn't that kind of person. But the evidence was irrefutable. Screenshots of bank transfers, foul text message exchanges, and crystal-clear surveillance footage that pinned her to her chair, speechless and immobile. She had always thought he was just a little insecure, a little spoiled, but fundamentally good. She remembered him as a child, crying his eyes out because he'd accidentally stepped on a butterfly. How had that boy become so twisted that he could orchestrate someone's torture and feel no remorse? Chloe went to the interrogation room. The moment she saw Liam's pale, terrified face and his eyes swimming with tears, her anger melted away, replaced by a familiar ache of pity. He rushed to her, sobbing. "Chloe, I'm so sorry. I only did it because I love you so much. I was afraid of losing you to him. I was so scared he would take you from me. I know I was wrong. Please, you have to help me. I don't want to go to jail. I still want to be your husband." A deep weariness settled over Chloe, but she comforted him out of habit. "Stop crying. I'll take care of it. You won't go to jail. But as for the wedding, we'll talk about that later." She pulled her hand from his grasp and walked out without looking back. A week later, as promised, she had him released on bail. But things were different. She started to distance herself from him, no longer answering his every call or catering to his every whim. She stopped returning his texts. "What's this, Chloe? Giving up on love?" A friend teased her one night. "If you're done with Liam, you could always go back to Ethan. We all saw how devoted he was to you, and your grandfather adored him. Why are you so hung up on Liam, anyway?" It had been a while since she'd heard my name, and to her surprise, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. Fueled by alcohol, she found herself comparing the two of us. Two men who looked so similar, yet were worlds apart in character. Liam was like a petulant child, constantly throwing tantrums to keep her attention focused solely on him. And for him, she had sacrificed so much, turning down major business deals, renouncing her position as the Walton heir, reducing her entire existence to the pursuit of a toxic romance. I, on the other hand, had never been like that. I was her warmth, her light. I cooked for her when she was sick, feeding her soup by the spoonful. I sat with her quietly while she worked, reminding her to rest and drink water. In her moments of doubt and frustration, I was her calm, steady guide. always there to help her find her way. I was always there, always responsive. I was a good man. If it hadn't been for my mother's illness, I could have been someone truly great. But I had accepted my fate without complaint, and I loved with my entire being, whether it was my mother or her. The thought spurred her to check her phone again, to see if I had replied. That's when she saw the red exclamation point next to her last message. Her heart dropped. In all the years we'd been together, no matter what she'd done to me, I had never once raised my voice to her, let alone blocked her number. I loved her too much. How could I ever block her? Was this just a game? Was I playing hard to get? The thought calmed her, and a small, pleased smile touched her lips. Ignoring the surprised looks from her friends, she abruptly left the party and drove straight to the mansion. On the way, she stopped at my favorite dumpling shop in the village and picked up an order of crab and pork soup dumplings. I used to drive an hour out of my way just for a taste of them. All she had to do was show up with these dumplings and give me a sincere apology, and I would forgive her. She was sure of it. She sped through the city streets and into the gated community. All the other mansions were lit up, but the one I had stayed in was dark. He's probably just asleep, she thought, her heart filled with anticipation as she let herself in and went straight to my old room. She couldn't wait to hold me, to pull me into her arms and tell me how lost she'd been without me. But when she flipped on the light switch, she froze. The room was empty. The desk, the closet, the bookshelves, all of it was bare. "Ethan," she called out, her voice echoing in the empty house. She searched every room, but I was gone. Even my suitcase was missing. A horrifying thought began to take root in her mind. I had really left her. Impossible. She immediately dismissed the idea and sped towards the hospital. I loved her too much. My mother was still here. I would never leave. But when she got to the hospital, my mother's old room had a new patient. The attending doctor informed her that my mother had passed away 2 months prior. "Mr. Hayes came in with the $380,000, the doctor explained, his voice heavy with regret. "He begged us to do the surgery, but your orders were explicit. We couldn't defy you." He knelt by his mother's side and cried all night. The nurses helped him arrange the funeral. "Ms. Walton, I assumed you knew." The color drained from Chloe's face. She remembered my call that night, the raw agony in my voice. But she had been drunk and cruel, and she had crushed my last hope without a second thought. And later, she had even accused me of lying about my own mother's death. The despair of it was unimaginable, and I had lived through every second of it. And she had known nothing, carrying on with Liam without a care in the world. Her hands shaking, she dialed my number. "Ethan," but all she heard was the cold, robotic voice of the automated message. "The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again." With a cry of rage, she hurled her phone against the wall. I had blocked her. On everything. I was really gone. The thought that I might never come back sent a wave of pure panic through her. She grabbed a burner phone and dialed her assistant. "Find out where Ethan went," she commanded. "And when you find him, bring him back to me. Immediately." That evening, her assistant called. "Ms. Walton, we tracked Mr. Hayes to JFK. The problem is, he booked tickets on a dozen different flights, all departing around the same time. We have no way of knowing which one he actually boarded." Chloe's frown deepened. "What do you mean you can't find out? It's like someone is actively scrubbing his trail. We can't find a single trace of him." On another note, we did find a record of a transfer Mr. Hayes made to your account 2 months ago, for $380,000. The number hung in the air, a taunt, a testament to her failure. "Find him," she screamed, her voice a mixture of fury and humiliation. "Keep searching." She smashed this phone too. She had been so sure I was just playing a game, trying to punish her for my mother, for Liam. She never imagined I would leave so completely, that I would go to such lengths to disappear. Did I really intend for us to never see each other again? She downed 2 glasses of whiskey in quick succession. Just then, the doorbell rang. Her eyes, which had been dull with despair, suddenly lit up. She rushed to the door and threw it open. "So you finally decided to come back," she said, a triumphant sneer on her face. But it wasn't me standing on her doorstep. It was her assistant, looking deeply uncomfortable. Her hope died as quickly as it had flared. "What do you want?" she snapped. "I'm sorry, Ms. Walton," the assistant said respectfully. "Your phone wasn't going through. I had to come in person. It's about your grandfather. He's awake." 30 minutes later, Chloe arrived at the hospital, her dark dress making her face seem even paler and more drawn. "Grandpa," she began. His cane cracked against her back. "Kneel," he commanded. Under the weight of his absolute authority, she sank to her knees. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he roared. "It was Liam. Liam was the one who pushed me down those stairs. He nearly killed me. And you were going to marry him?" What did you think that would do to Ethan, to the Walton family name? He slammed his cane against the floor, each impact echoing the frantic beating of Chloe's heart. She looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Grandpa," she stammered. "Who did you say pushed you?" "It was Liam, you fool. He came to me demanding the family heirloom, begging for my permission to marry you. When I refused, he pushed me down the stairs without a second thought. That, Chloe, is the nephew you raised for 10 years. A vicious, ungrateful snake." His words landed like hammer blows, filling her with a profound and sickening shame. She couldn't believe it. The boy she had cherished for so long, her first love, was a monster. Attempted murder, false accusation, slander, any one of them was a serious felony. How could Liam have dared? "Grandpa," Chloe said, her voice low and steady, "don't worry. I will handle this. I will give you justice." After leaving the hospital, she drove directly to the house where Liam was staying. Having been ignored for days, he was both overjoyed and hurt to see her. "Chloe, you finally came. I thought you were still mad at me, that you were going to leave me." He turned on the waterworks, his tears falling as easily as ever, but for the first time, they had no effect on her. "Come with me," was all she said. An hour later, they were standing at the gates of a cemetery. The clear evening sky had given way to a sudden, violent thunderstorm. Dark clouds roiled overhead, and a cold wind whipped through the trees, making Liam shiver. "Chloe, why are we here? Can we please go back?" he pleaded, clutching her hand. In the past, she would have immediately given in, her heart aching for his distress. But now her face was a cold, emotionless mask. "Keep up," she ordered. Sensing her dark mood, Liam gritted his teeth and hurried after her. They stopped in front of a simple headstone. In the gloom, he couldn't make out the photograph on it. "Chloe, what is this place? Who is this?" Before she could answer, something shoved him hard from behind, and his knees gave out, hitting the muddy ground with a sickening thud. He cried out, and in a flash of lightning, he finally saw the face in the photograph. It was my mother. He tried to scramble away, but one of Chloe's bodyguards grabbed him by the collar and forced him back to his knees. "Are you scared now?" Chloe's voice was as cold and hard as the rain. "You should have thought of this when you convinced me to cut off her medical care." Her voice dropped to a furious whisper. "You killed Ethan's mother. You pushed my grandfather down the stairs. You set him up. You're a monster. So why do you keep pretending to be a saint? I told you I would love you forever. I told you I would do anything for you. All you had to do was ask, and I would have burned down the world for you. So why did you lie to me? Why did you turn me into your weapon, your executioner, over and over again? Do you have any idea how it felt to learn the truth?" Her roar made him flinch, and tears immediately sprang to his eyes. Seeing the raw, uncontrolled fury on her face, he was terrified. "Chloe, please, let me explain. I only did it because you love me too much?" She cut him off, her voice dripping with disgust, her eyes filled with a bottomless disappointment. She had heard that excuse 100 times, and every single time, she had forgiven him, cleaned up his mess, protected him from the consequences. But this kind of love was suffocating. She grabbed the back of his head and slammed his face into the dirt in front of the grave. "You're going to stay here all night," she hissed, "and you're going to repent." She turned and walked away, locking the cemetery gates behind her without a backward glance. After a night of pure terror, the moment the sun rose, Liam's frayed nerves finally gave out. The world went black. He woke up in a bed back at the house. Chloe tossed a set of signed divorce papers and a one-way plane ticket onto the bed. "From this moment on, you have no connection to the Walton family. I never want to see your face again." In the end, their 10 years together meant something. She didn't destroy him completely. She just exiled him, ensuring they would never cross paths again. But Liam wouldn't give up. "Chloe, please, I know I was wrong. Don't send me away. I love you. I can't live without you." He grabbed his phone, frantically scrolling through photos of them together. "Don't you remember this? We climbed that mountain in Aspen. We watched the sunrise in Maui. We spent that whole week locked in our hotel room in Paris. We had so many good times together. Have you forgotten all of it? Can you really just throw away 10 years of our lives?" But Chloe's voice was calm, devoid of emotion. "I haven't forgotten, and it's because it was once so good that this ending is so pathetic." Her past hopes now only served to deepen her present pain. "Get out," she said, leaning down, her eyes boring into his, her expression terrifying. "Get out before I change my mind and have you thrown in a real prison." Knowing it was over, Liam closed his eyes in defeat. Just before she walked out the door, he asked her a question to which she herself did not know the answer. "You've fallen in love with Ethan, haven't you?" In stark contrast to the chaos consuming the Waltons, my life had become blessedly calm. I traveled to a remote corner of the country, deep in the mountains, and arrived at the gates of a top-secret research facility. Professor Albright looked almost apologetic. Ethan, this project is a matter of national security, so the facilities are rustic. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, Professor, I assured him. It's an honor to be here, to be a part of this kind of research, to work in medicine. It's always been my dream. I was a sickly child, and then my mother got sick, so I spent the better part of my first 25 years in and out of hospitals. I was always in awe of the doctors, watching them pull people back from the brink of death. Seemed like magic. I knew then that I wanted to do that, to save lives. So I dedicated myself to my studies, working day and night until I was accepted into the top medical school in the country. I excelled there, discovering a natural aptitude for the work. Even during those years in Chloe's gilded cage, I never stopped studying. I was born to be a doctor. For the next month, I threw myself into my work, catching up on the latest research and honing my practical skills. At the end of the month, I took an assessment exam and stunned everyone by scoring near-perfect marks, officially earning my place at the institute. The work was grueling, but for the first time in years, I was surrounded by friends who shared my passion. During a team-building retreat, a photo fell out of my wallet. A senior researcher on my team picked it up. "Ethan," he asked, reading the name on the back. "Who's Chloe Walton?" "Your girlfriend." I froze. I hadn't heard her name in so long. Seeing the photo of us together felt like looking at a ghost. It took me a moment to even process who she was. The memory of her had already faded so much. I took the photo from him, tore it into tiny pieces, and dropped it in the trash. "Just someone I used to know," I said. "Not important." His curiosity was piqued. "So, have you ever had a girlfriend? A guy who looks like you and is as smart as you must have women lining up." "They can't run fast enough," I joked. For the next 2 months, I poured every ounce of my being into my research. My 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. schedule became legendary, a pace no one else could match. Professor Albright was immensely proud, telling anyone who would listen, "That's my protege." Building on the work of those who came before me, I finally had a breakthrough. I raced to Professor Albright's office, the data clutched in my hand. "Professor," I said, trying to contain my excitement, "the approach is working. If we stay on this track, I think we're going to have results very soon." The professor was ecstatic. He immediately sent the data to headquarters in Washington, D.C. Within an hour, my name was on everyone's lips throughout the entire research network. The director of the institute personally messaged me, asking what I wanted as a reward. My request was unusual, a 1-month leave of absence. Since joining the institute, I had outpaced everyone. In terms of talent, I was blessed. In terms of sheer effort, no one worked harder. I once passed out from low blood sugar, and my first thought upon waking was about the next step in my experiment. For a workaholic like me to suddenly request a month off to relax was, to put it mildly, shocking to everyone. But Professor Albright approved it without hesitation. "You've more than earned it, son. You need a break. You're so thin, people will start thinking I'm starving you." He then pulled me aside, his expression turning serious. "Ethan," he said quietly, "you're not a kid anymore. Have you given any thought to your personal life?" "Professor, the day I left New York, I decided I was done with love," I said, politely declining his offer to set me up on a date. Instead, I took a trip just for myself. The beach, the ocean, the sunset, all the simple joys I had postponed for years because of Chloe, I was finally able to experience them. I even went hiking in the Rockies, and on a quiet peak under the vast sky, I felt like I could talk to my mother again. The sun on my face felt like her gentle touch, as if she had never left. On my way back, Professor Albright was supposed to pick me up from the airport, but he called at the last minute. "Ethan, something's come up. It's pouring out there, but don't worry. I've sent my daughter to get you." The moment I hung up, a sweet, familiar voice called my name from behind me. "Ethan." I never imagined I would run into my first love like this. I turned, my eyes wide with shock, and stared at the woman in front of me. Took me a moment to find my voice. "Bianca, you're Professor Albright's daughter." "The one and only," she said with a smile. Bianca Albright. She was the first girl who ever made my heart skip a beat. I remembered my first day of college, sensitive and shy, standing lost at the entrance with all my luggage. Other students had friends or family helping them, but I was too timid to ask anyone for directions. Just as I was about to try and figure it out myself, a gentle hand tapped my shoulder. I followed her in a daze all the way to my dorm room. As she was leaving, she playfully took off my baseball cap. "A handsome guy like you shouldn't always be looking at the ground," she said with a soft laugh. My heart skipped a beat. We shyly exchanged numbers. After that, I started seeing her everywhere. I saw her dancing with the cheerleading squad on the football field, heard her playing beautiful melodies in the music room, and we kept running into each other in the stairwell of the science building. Her eyes always seemed to be smiling, and her laugh was the most infectious sound I'd ever heard. She was one of the most popular girls on campus, yet for some reason, she always seemed to find her way to me, calling out my name in that bright, cheerful voice. Everyone assumed we were a couple, and we might have been if my mother hadn't gotten sick. I pushed her away, and she ended up transferring to a school in Europe. I thought that was the end of our story, but the Bianca standing in front of me now was even more direct than I remembered. She stood on her toes, her smiling eyes locked on mine, and said, "Ethan, can I ask you out on a date?" A warmth I hadn't felt in years spread through my chest, but I tried to hide it. "Bianca, please," I said, a little too formally. The car ride was quiet after that, until we pulled up in front of a charming house. "My dad wanted to have you over for dinner," she explained. I didn't object, so I followed her inside. Professor Albright, however, was nowhere to be seen. It was just Bianca, bustling around in the kitchen. Sensing my awkwardness, she smiled. "Anything you don't eat?" "No," I said, sitting up a little straighter. She laughed. "Relax. I don't bite." Feeling a bit useless just sitting there, I offered to help in the kitchen. She didn't refuse, but she didn't give me much to do, just asking me to hand her a dish or a utensil now and then. When we finally sat down to eat, I was stunned. She had made all of my favorite foods, things I hadn't eaten in years. She'd even remembered my favorite dessert. It was just like back in college. She had always had this uncanny ability to know exactly what I liked. She had never asked me about my preferences, but every little thing she did for me was always exactly right. A question that had been on my mind for 5 years finally came out. "How did you know I liked all this?" "I just paid attention," she said with a shrug. "At club dinners, you always went back for seconds of the same few dishes. And you have a sweet tooth. It wasn't hard to figure out." I looked down at my plate, a strange feeling washing over me. It was amazing, the difference between people. One person could spend 5 years by your side and know nothing about you. Another could be gone for just as long and remember every little detail. I was genuinely touched. "Thank you," I said, my voice a little thick. Throughout the meal, she was incredibly attentive, keeping the conversation flowing, deboning my fish, and seeming to sense my every mood. I gradually began to relax. "So what are your plans, now that you're back?" I asked. "With your credentials, you could easily get a position at the institute." She looked at me, her expression serious. "Ethan," she said, "I came back for you." The air in the room seemed to thicken. I could feel my ears getting hot. "I think it's starting to rain," I said, desperate to change the subject. I hadn't meant it literally, but a moment later, the heavens opened up. A torrential downpour began, and a severe weather alert flashed across the television screen. 2 hours later, the storm was still raging. It was clear I wasn't going anywhere. I had to spend the night. The cozy little apartment felt even smaller with just the two of us inside. While Bianca was in the shower, I went into her room to find a hairdryer and saw it on her desk, a framed photo of the two of us. It was from the day we'd won the university science fair together. Next to the photo was a journal. Couldn't resist. I opened it. Asterisk met a really cute guy today. His voice is amazing, but he's so shy. His name is Ethan. I like it. Asterisk heard he was the valedictorian of his high school. He's in my department. Asterisk he came to my club's auditions today, and he stayed to watch my tennis match afterwards. I think I might be starting to like him. Asterisk I'm gonna tell Ethan how I feel tomorrow. I hope he likes me too. Asterisk Ethan doesn't like me. The entry stopped on the day I told her we couldn't see each other anymore. I could still see the faint, blurry stains of tears on the page. A sharp pain lanced through my chest. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "What are you sorry for?" Bianca's voice came from behind me. "Ethan, I didn't know what was happening with your mother. Instead of being there for you, I got angry and ran away to Europe. I'm the one who should be sorry. You've been through so much all alone." The cruel things I'd said to her were what had driven her away. For years, she had avoided any news of me, even skipping class reunions. She had thrown herself into her work, trying to forget, but she had never stopped thinking about me. The longing had become a tidal wave, and 3 months ago, it had finally overwhelmed her. She decided to come back to find me. She just never imagined the hell I had been living in for the past 5 years. I took a deep breath. "What's past is prologue," I said. After that night, I dove back into my research. But now I had a partner by my side. On busy nights, we'd spend all night in the lab, working from dusk until dawn, united in our shared purpose. In our free time, we'd go into town for a movie or try out a new restaurant. If Chloe was a sudden, violent storm on a calm sea, Bianca was the rainbow that followed. Every moment with her was so effortlessly happy that I almost forgot she had come back with a purpose, and that purpose was me. I had to admit, the power of a first love is a force to be reckoned with. She took care of me in 1,000 small ways, always showing me a gentle respect I hadn't realized I was starving for. She planned all our dates, each one a carefully crafted escape designed to help me unwind from the pressures of work. She even took a nutrition course online so she could create a personalized meal plan to help me regain my health. In time, we both admitted what we had been feeling for a while, and we finally made it official. We quickly became the couple everyone in the lab envied. Another 6 months flew by, and my project achieved a major breakthrough. Bianca and I were both transferred to the main headquarters in DC to present our findings at a press conference. The story was picked up by every major news outlet, and I was hailed as one of the preeminent medical minds of my generation. With the project completed, I suddenly had free time on my hands. It was an unfamiliar feeling. Bianca suggested we take a trip, and we ended up traveling the world together. Our last stop was in France, to visit her mother. Her parents had divorced when she was young. Her father dedicated his life to science, and her mother had remarried and moved to Europe. I was a little nervous before meeting her mother, but she turned out to be a warm, kind, and refreshingly blunt woman. She pressed a family heirloom, a beautiful locket, into my hand and asked, "So, have you two set a date yet?" My face flushed, and I stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Her mother raised an eyebrow. "You are planning on getting married, aren't you?" She then turned to Bianca, playfully tugging her ear. "Bianca, what's the plan here? Dating without the intention of marriage is just messing around. You can't play games with a good man like Ethan." Bianca laughed, a little exasperated. "Mom, whose side are you on? I'm not playing games. I'm dating Ethan with every intention of marrying him." Her words, so firm and certain, took me by surprise. When we first got together, I hadn't thought that far ahead. I just wanted to enjoy the moment, to allow myself to love and be loved again. Marriage seemed like a distant, abstract concept, something left up to fate. I assumed she felt the same way. To hear her say so plainly that she wanted to marry me, I was both humbled and deeply moved. Her mother was very pleased with this answer and immediately turned her attention to me. "And what about you, Ethan? Do you want to marry my daughter?" Did I want to get married? The idea still felt foreign, but marrying her, that didn't sound so bad at all. Just as I was about to speak, Bianca jumped in. "Mom, please don't pressure us. Just give us a little time. Who knows, the next time you see us, it might be at our wedding." She had a way with words, and her mother was instantly appeased. I breathed a silent sigh of relief. On the flight home that night, I couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you curious what my answer would have been?" She smiled. "I am. Are you going to tell me?" "Bianca," I said, my voice full of a certainty that surprised even me, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you." While I was finding my happiness, the Walton family was imploding. After throwing Liam out, Chloe cut off all his credit cards and publicly disowned him. Without the Walton safety net, Liam's life fell apart. Unwilling to accept his exile, he started waiting outside her mansion gates every day, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. The moment she would leave the house, he would latch onto her like a leech. He abandoned all pretense of pride, kneeling on the pavement and begging her to just look at him. "Chloe, please don't do this to me. I know I was wrong. Please just give me one more chance. I'm begging you. I know you're angry, but I can change. I can be the kind, gentle Liam you always wanted me to be. I'll even go to Ethan. I'll get on my knees and beg for his forgiveness if that's what you want. Just please, don't leave me." The once arrogant Liam was now a pathetic, groveling mess. His handsome face was now sallow and gaunt. He had lost so much weight he was almost unrecognizable. The sight of him made Chloe sick. She no longer had any patience or pity for him. She would simply have her security guards remove him from the property. Her heart was no longer occupied by her supposed first love. There was only one thought in her mind now: find Ethan, apologize, and beg him to come back. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into a year, and the all-powerful Chloe Walton could not find a single trace of me. She began to spiral, locking herself in my old room, drinking herself into a stupor day after day. The few things I had left behind became her confidants, the silent witnesses to her drunken, late-night sobbing. One night, lying on my old bed, she clutched a photograph of me, her vision blurring until the image seemed to come to life. She could see me, young and full of hope, smiling at her. "Chloe," the ghost of me asked, "will you always be this good to me? Will you love me forever?" But then the memory soured. The smiling, vibrant boy was replaced by a cold, silent man. The man who had never cared for material things suddenly measured everything in dollars and cents. After we made love, he would immediately withdraw, his hand outstretched, waiting to be paid. She would give me expensive gifts, and I would sell them the next day. "Just give me the cash next time," I would tell her, my voice flat. "I lose too much on the resale value." I stopped caring about her completely. I even charged her a fee for bandaging a cut on her hand. Her fury had exploded. "When did you become so greedy, Ethan?" she had screamed at me. "Was this all it was ever about? The money? Now that Liam's back, you're scared, so you're showing your true colors? I'm warning you. If you want me to feel anything for you but disgust, you'd better drop this pathetic act." She thought her threats would make me back down, but I had just stared at her, my face a blank mask, and asked, "Hasn't this always been a transaction?" In that moment, a wave of helplessness and defeat had washed over her. She was the one who had drawn up the contract. She was the one who had treated me like a pet, a bird in a gilded cage. So why did it hurt so much when the bird started demanding more seed instead of singing for love? It was all her fault. She had ruined everything. She could see it all so clearly now. The disappointment on my face, again and again, until finally, my heart dead, I had packed my bags and walked away. With a scream of rage, she hurled her wine bottle against the wall, hating herself, hating the person she had been. If only she had paid attention, had seen what she was doing to me, maybe things wouldn't have ended this way. In her drunken haze, Liam's parting words echoed in her ears. "You've fallen in love with Ethan, haven't you? Just admit it. You're madly in love with him, but you're too proud to say it. You're a hypocrite, Chloe." Love? After all this time, after all the pain and disappointment, she finally had to admit it to herself. She was in love with me. She hadn't appreciated me when I was there, and now that I was gone, she couldn't stop thinking about me. How pathetic. She had always known, on some level, how much I had sacrificed for her, but she had taken it all for granted. I had given up my dreams to be with her, content to be her pretty bird in a cage. I had given up my freedom, my future, all because I was foolish enough to believe we had one together. I had wanted nothing more than to be with her, but time and time again, she had chosen Liam, leaving me broken and bleeding. But whatever pain I had felt then, she was feeling it 1,000 times over now. She tore my old room apart, and in a dusty corner, she found it, my old wish jar. Inside were 999 tiny, folded paper stars. She began to open them, one by one, each unfolded wish a tiny piece of my heart laid bare. Go on a real date with Chloe. See a movie with Chloe. Take Chloe to Paris. After unfolding every last star, she booked a flight to Paris the very next day. She searched the entire city, but I was nowhere to be found. Undeterred, she continued her pilgrimage, traveling to every city, every landmark I had ever dreamed of visiting. But it was useless. I had vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, in the wake of her public scandals, the Walton Corporation's stock price plummeted. The company was hemorrhaging money. Long-term partners pulled out, contracts were terminated, and years of hidden corruption and mismanagement finally came to light, delivering the final, fatal blow. The Walton Corporation was bankrupt. But Chloe didn't care. Money could be earned back, she told herself. A company could be rebuilt. But a life without love was a life without a soul. Just as she was preparing to leave on another fruitless search for me, her grandfather had her brought back to the family estate. He threw a newspaper down in front of her. On the front page was a picture of me. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded. Chloe stared at the photo, stunned. It was me on stage at a press conference for the National Research Institute. Gone was the broken, defeated man she remembered. The man in the photo was confident, brilliant, practically glowing. Even in a still photograph, my newfound confidence was palpable. This was who I was always meant to be. Chloe grabbed the newspaper, her hands trembling with excitement, and made for the door, but her grandfather's security guards blocked her path. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Grandpa, let me go. I have to find Ethan. You always liked him best. I'm going to go to him. I'll apologize. I'll beg him to forgive me. I'll ask him to marry me." Her grandfather looked at her haggard face and bloodshot eyes, and sighed. "You blamed me for trying to keep you and Liam apart. You blamed me for trying to force you to marry Ethan, a man you claimed you didn't love. Now everything is as you wanted it. Ethan is gone. You are married to Liam, and still you are not satisfied? What is this madness? Are you trying to tell me you've changed your mind? That you're in love with Ethan now?" His voice was laced with sarcasm, but she had no answer for him. She was the one who had insisted on marrying Liam. She was the one who had treated me with nothing but contempt. And now she was the one desperately trying to get me back. Her friends had tried to reason with her, telling her to let me go, to have some dignity. But she was convinced I was just sulking, that eventually I would get over it and come home. But I was an ambitious man with a future. Why would I waste another second of my life on her? My quiet departure had been the most effective revenge of all. "Tell me," her grandfather said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "what is it you actually want?" Her mind, foggy from alcohol and lack of sleep, went blank. Before, her goal had been simple: find Ethan, beg for his forgiveness, and get him back. But now, looking at my picture, a new, terrifying thought entered her mind. She didn't deserve me. She immediately pushed the thought away. No, Grandpa, I have to find him. I'm going to marry him. As she made another move towards the door, she felt a sharp pain at the base of her skull, and then, nothing. She collapsed to the floor, unconscious. When she woke, she was locked in her old bedroom at the estate. The nanny who had raised her snuck in to see her, her eyes full of pity. "My dear girl," she pleaded, "you must let him go. This obsession is only causing you more pain." "No," Chloe whispered, her voice hoarse. "Without him, my life is nothing but pain." Chloe refused to yield, so her grandfather kept her locked away. The first day, she screamed and raged, but no one came. The second day, she destroyed everything in the room and tried to climb out the window, falling and badly injuring her leg. On the third day, she tried to feign a medical emergency, but her grandfather didn't fall for it. After a week, she went on a hunger strike and was eventually hospitalized for severe dehydration. But even after they brought her back from the brink, her first whispered word was my name. In the end, she was his granddaughter, the child he had raised. He couldn't stay angry forever. He relented. The moment the guards were gone from her door, Chloe took a cab straight to the National Research Institute headquarters in D.C. The security guard at the gate refused to let her in. "Don't you know who I am?" she shrieked, completely unhinged. "I'm Ethan Hayes' fiancé. Let me in." She tried to force her way past him, a disheveled, frantic mess, but he pushed her back each time. Passers-by started to stare and mock her. Who is this crazy woman, impersonating Dr. Hayes' fiancé? She has no shame. Seriously, Dr. Hayes is a national hero. His work has saved thousands of lives. What makes a pathetic wreck like her think she has any right to even say his name? The cruel words were like daggers, each one piercing her heart. So this is what it felt like. This was the vicious humiliation I had endured. Her hands clenched into fists, her nails digging so deeply into her palms that they drew blood, but she didn't feel a thing. She just stood there, frozen like a statue. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. The heavens opened up, and a torrential rain began to fall, soaking her to the bone. Still, she didn't move. She didn't know how long she stood there before an umbrella appeared over her head. A soft voice spoke from behind her. "Chloe, let's go home." She turned, dazed, to see Liam holding the umbrella over her. Seeing the dead, empty look in her eyes, a bitter taste filled his mouth. If it weren't for me, he and Chloe could have been happy together. He wouldn't have been her nephew, but her husband, standing proudly by her side. But the woman in front of him now was a stranger whose coldness made him tremble. Her eyes were like pools of dead water, and in their depths, he saw a flicker of pure disgust. Why? I was gone. Why was she still so obsessed with me? "Can't you just look at me?" he pleaded again. But her answer was not the one he wanted. "Liam, we're finished. There's no chance of us getting back together. Stop following me." He refused to listen. In a fit of humiliated rage, he threw the umbrella at her. "Chloe, I gave you 11 years of my life, the best years, and you're just going to throw it all away." Already weak and exhausted, the blow from the umbrella made her stagger. The world spun and she collapsed. When she woke up, she was in an unfamiliar hotel room. Lying on the bed beside her, shirtless, was Liam. A blind, consuming rage washed over her. With a guttural scream, she kicked him out of the bed and onto the floor. Before he could even cry out in pain, her hands were around his throat, squeezing until his face began to turn purple. Her voice was a low, terrifying whisper. "Who told you you could touch me? What did you do?" She flung him across the room, and his head hit the floor with a sickening crack. Chloe calmly took out her phone and made a call. A few minutes later, her bodyguards burst into the room. One of them handed her a small pill, which she swallowed without a drop of water. "Take him away," she said, her voice like ice. "Make sure he can't have any more bright ideas." Liam's eyes widened in disbelief and pure terror, his body shaking uncontrollably. But Chloe didn't give him a chance to speak. She had her men take him directly to a clinic for a vasectomy. She knew his game. If she got pregnant, she would be trapped. Even if she refused, her grandfather would force her to marry him to avoid a scandal. And I would never take her back if she was tied to him forever. The thought filled her with a cold, murderous rage. But what Chloe didn't know was that her public meltdown at the institute had gone viral. A bystander had filmed the whole thing, and it didn't take long for the internet to identify the screaming beggar as Chloe Walton, the very same woman who had so publicly dumped me to marry Liam just a year before. The story exploded online. "She's the absolute worst," one comment read. "The only decent thing she ever did was date Dr. Hayes. and she screwed that up. Another said, what did Dr. Hayes do in a past life to deserve being saddled with such a psycho? I scrolled through the comments, a bitter, ironic smile on my lips. It's funny how success makes everyone your champion. What are you reading that's so fascinating? Bianca asked, wrapping her arms around me from behind and planting a soft kiss on my cheek. But when she saw what was on my screen, her expression tensed. She took the phone from my hand and placed it face down on the table. Why are you looking at that? She asked, her voice tight. I looked at her, at the nervous energy radiating off her, and narrowed my eyes. You already knew about this, didn't you? Why else would you be acting so guilty? Yes, she admitted without hesitation. I had to go back to the lab last night to pick something up, and I saw the whole thing. Even now, she looked annoyed. She confessed that the moment she'd seen Chloe there, she had been overcome with an almost irresistible urge to punch her in the face. She had wanted to make her pay for everything she'd put me through. But then she'd remembered our history, and she'd been afraid of upsetting me. So instead, she had just called security and had her removed. Are you upset? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Do you feel sorry for her? I almost laughed. Feel sorry for her? Bianca, she brought every last bit of this on herself. Whatever I felt for her died the day my mother did. There's nothing left. Seeing the worry still lingering in her eyes, I pulled her into my arms. Hey, I said softly. When I say I'm done with someone, I mean it. And when I say I love you, I mean it. Besides, I added, a teasing note in my voice. When did you get so insecure? My sudden playfulness seemed to startle her. Then a slow smile spread across her face, and she pulled me into a deep, lingering kiss. A few hours later, I took Bianca to my mother's grave. Hi, Mom, I said softly. I'm here. I talked to her for a long time, telling her everything, with Bianca standing quietly by my side. Before we left, I took Bianca's hand. Mom, I said, my voice thick with emotion, a tearful smile on my face. This is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'm going to ask her to marry me. If you're watching, please look out for her. Please let her have a life full of peace and joy. And please, give us your blessing. Bianca looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise, and then she knelt beside me in front of the headstone. Mom, she said, her voice full of conviction, I promise you, I will take care of Ethan. I will never let him down. I broke into a tearful smile. As we were leaving the cemetery, I heard a voice call my name, a voice I knew all too well. Ethan, my smile froze on my face. I watched as Chloe walked towards us. She hadn't expected to see me either. She had only come to pay her respects at my mother's grave. She was about to call out to me when she saw her, the woman walking beside me, our hands intertwined. But what truly shocked her to the core was hearing me, in front of my mother's grave, say I was going to marry this other woman. Ethan, she demanded, her voice trembling. Who is she? I met her gaze, and I knew that all she saw in my eyes was emptiness. I raised my hand, the one that was holding Bianca's. She's my fiancée, I said simply. Bianca instinctively moved to stand slightly in front of me, her eyes fixed on Chloe with a cold, protective glare. Chloe's composure shattered. That's impossible, she shrieked. You love me. How could you be in love with her? I had no desire to engage with her madness. I took Bianca's arm and started walking towards our car. Ethan, she rushed to block our path, dropping to her knees on the pavement in front of me. Ethan, please, she begged, her voice a pathetic whimper. I thought I loved Liam, but I was wrong. It's you. It's always been you. Please just give me one more chance. I know I was wrong. Please, forgive me. She reached for my hand, but Bianca slapped her, hard, sending her sprawling to the ground. Even the kindest person has their limits. Bianca grabbed Chloe by the collar and hit her again, her face a mask of cold, contained fury. It was a mirror image of the past, of the whip cracking against my own back. This is for Ethan, Bianca said, her voice low and dangerous. This is for his mother, and this one is for me. Chloe was too weak to even defend herself. Years of self-abuse, of alcohol and sleepless nights, had left her a fragile, hollowed-out shell. But she didn't seem to feel the physical pain. Her eyes were fixed on me, full of a desperate, pathetic hope. She was searching my face for a flicker of the old love, a hint of pity. She found nothing. I simply stood there, watching, making no move to intervene. As medical professionals, both Bianca and I knew that the blows were superficial, causing more humiliation than actual harm. But for Chloe, each one was a hammer blow, shattering the last vestiges of her hope. Finally, Bianca stopped. Her calm composure finally cracked, and she gently wiped a smear of Chloe's blood from her own hand. She looked down at the woman on the ground. Call the police if you want, she said, her voice cold. but I will be filing a restraining order against you for harassment. An eye for an eye. It was a lesson Chloe herself had taught me. The irony was not lost on me. Chloe's reappearance didn't affect me in the slightest, but it left Bianca feeling insecure. She kept trying to probe to ask if I had really meant what I'd said about marriage, or if it was just a way to hurt Chloe. I didn't know whether to laugh or be exasperated. But then I remembered my own years of uncertainty and insecurity, and my heart went out to her. Only someone who has been starved of love can be so afraid of losing it. I decided to put her fears to rest. I booked a venue and set a date for our wedding, 1 month away. The day after we set the date, I suggested we go to City Hall and make it official, but she refused, saying the time wasn't right. For the next few days, she was strangely secretive, leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night without any explanation. I was starting to get confused. She had been so thrilled when we'd set the date, so why the sudden hesitation? I got my answer on the third night. She invited me to a restaurant, and when I arrived, I found the entire place had been decorated like a wedding reception. A moment later, the entire restaurant began to sing Happy Birthday, and I realized with a jolt that it was my birthday. Bianca emerged, pushing a large cake, followed by Professor Albright and his wife, my closest colleagues from the institute, and all the old friends I had managed to keep in touch with. "Make a wish, Ethan," Bianca said, her eyes shining. My wish was a simple one, to always be surrounded by the people I loved, and to live the rest of my life in freedom and happiness. I blew out the candles, my eyes stinging with tears. "Thank you," I whispered. After the party, Bianca drove me to a beautiful little house on the north side of town and handed me a set of keys. She looked up at me, her eyes full of a love so deep it took my breath away. "Ethan," she said, "will you be the master of this house? Will you be my husband and share the rest of your life with me?" Tears streamed down my face, my voice thick with emotion as I answered, "Yes, of course, yes." The moonlight streamed through the windows of our new home as the lights inside flickered on, and then off. After that night, everything fell into place. We both took 2 months off from work to plan the wedding together, handwriting the invitations, choosing the flowers, making sure every detail was perfect. Everything was going smoothly until the night before the wedding, when I received a text from Mr. Walton Sr. * Ethan, "I know this is a lot to ask, but I was hoping you might come to the hospital. It's about Chloe. * He had been good to me, so I went. The woman in the hospital bed was a skeletal stranger, a ghost of the vibrant, arrogant Chloe I remembered. Mr. Walton Sr. looked 100 years old. "It's kidney failure," he said, his voice a dry rasp. "The doctors say she doesn't have a month." I lowered my gaze and said nothing. Bianca had already told me what her contacts had found. After I left, Chloe had started drinking, heavily. She had drunk herself into the emergency room with a bleeding ulcer, and the first thing she did when she got out was open another bottle. It was no surprise her body had finally given out. She stared out the window, her expression blank, her lips a thin, bloodless line. She was silent for a long time. When she got the diagnosis, I was the first person she had asked for. There were so many things she wanted to say to me, so many things she still wanted to do with me. But after another hemorrhage landed her back in the ICU, she had finally given up. What right did a dying woman have to interfere in anyone else's life? "You must be happy to see me like this," she said, her voice a weak, sarcastic rasp. "You always wanted to be rid of me. Now that I'm dying, you must be thrilled." I shook my head. "No." Her dull eyes suddenly lit up with a flicker of hope. "Really? Does that mean you still?" "No." I cut her off, my voice flat. "It means that my life goes on, with or without you in it." In other words, she was irrelevant. Her life or death had no bearing on mine. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I cut her off. "If you only brought me here to listen to this nonsense, then I'm leaving. My fiancé and I are getting married on Monday. You're welcome to come, if you're still around." I placed an invitation on her bedside table and walked out. Because I truly didn't care, I didn't see her snatch the invitation and tear it to shreds, sobbing like a heartbroken child. But after she was done crying, she painstakingly taped the pieces back together. To see me on my wedding day, even if she wasn't the bride, would be enough. 2 days before the wedding, she had a sudden, miraculous recovery. It was what the nurses called a rally before the end. She liquidated all her remaining assets and had the money wired to my bank account. The next day, the entire sum was wired back, with a short, formal message from my lawyer. "Ms. Walton, please refrain from any further contact." Chloe stared at the message for a long time, her tears eventually turning into a broken, hollow laugh. "Ethan, please come back," she whispered to the empty room. There was no reply. The wedding was beautiful, a romantic, fairy tale setting with flowers, soft lighting, and beautiful music. To Chloe, who watched from the back row, It was all a bitter mockery of her own failure and arrogance. Bianca was breathtaking in a simple white gown, her hair swept up, looking like a goddess come to earth. She walked down the aisle slowly, her steps steady and sure, her eyes fixed on me. Amidst the joyful cheers of our friends and family, the officiant began. Bianca Albright, do you take Ethan Hayes to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? Bianca's eyes filled with tears. I do, she said, her voice full of emotion. The officiant then turned to me. Ethan Hayes, do you take Bianca Albright to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? In the back of the church, Chloe held her breath, her eyes, red and swollen, fixed on me. I looked into Bianca's eyes, my own full of a love that was calm, and deep, and true. I do, I said, and with those two words, what little was left of Chloe Walton's spirit finally shattered. After the ceremony, Chloe limped out of the church, hoping for one last look at me. As I stepped onto the street, she saw it, a car, speeding directly towards me. Behind the wheel was Liam. Without a single thought, Chloe threw herself in front of the car. The impact sent her flying 30 feet through the air. The single white rose she was clutching scattered across the pavement as she landed in a pool of her own blood. Her last sight was of me walking away, getting smaller and smaller. Ethan, she whispered, and then her eyes closed for the last time. The sirens wailed as the police apprehended Liam. 2 years later, Bianca and I welcomed a daughter into the world. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze was blowing. Felt like a benediction.